Well, hello there. You guys all know me as the huggable, lovable, and fortunately enough, untouchable Big Bear StarCraft 2, bringing you my 11th cast. And I have actually been fortunate enough to find this game. I did find it on StarCraft2Replays.org, and I quote, the game is Goody versus Matiz, super epic, totally awesome non-stop action for 44 minutes straight. So we shall see if a random internet uploader has been lying to me. The game is in fact 44 minutes long. So I will probably have no voice and I will probably not be able to finish my homework, but you know what? That is the price you pay for super epic, intense, long, lose your whole fucking base games. And I think that that is a fair price to pay. And I am hoping that this brings in some more subscribers, because I'm really looking to increase my subscriber count by a little bit more. And yeah, I mean, a lot of people have been saying that they like my cast. A lot of people have also been saying that my cast put them to sleep. So I am trying to figure out how to fix those things the best I can as a response to actually my audio quality. I apologize for that. There's nothing I can really do to that, considering the fact that I am absolutely and 100% broke, and this microphone was actually a gift from a friend. The computer is mine, but this computer I've had for many, many years is a very nice computer, so that is the only reason why I can in fact cast the videos at the quality I do give you. And so I mean, yeah, that's kind of a problem. But if I do get a couple more subscribers, I think I will be willing to dump the money into buying a better microphone. We shall see. It really all is dependent on how much support I get from you guys. And if you guys like me, because obviously if you guys hate me and unsubscribe from me and just say, wow, Big Bear StarCraft, what an asshole, I do not ever want to hear his terrible, terrible voice again, there's obviously no reason for me to cast. And you can see this drone is willing to sacrifice itself to in fact pick this off. And he actually does bring the drone out. Now the reason why the drone has 2 HP, now 4 and 5, is because every single Zerg unit actually does regenerate health at a pretty fast rate. It's actually kind of surprising. This Marine barely not getting out in time to barely miss him, and Goody actually does opt for the amazing 12-11 Rex. I know it should have been 11-12, pushing out with 2 SCVs, but losing that first SCV does kind of put a damper on his economy, so we'll see what the Zerg does since he did opt for an early hatch. You can see his spawning pool will not be done by the time these SCVs and Marines actually reach the front door of the Zerg base. And so this is kind of like a really aggressive playstyle. I really enjoy. He might actually lose this Overlord. If he does lose this Overlord, that'll be a huge deal, because it will take him a good amount of time to build another one. If he can lose it before he actually gets Zerglings out, then that will be a ginormous deal, because he will then be able to build no more Zerglings until he gets a new Overlord. That is not the case. The drones do push him back. He decides to get a spawn crawler and a spine crawler, excuse me. I kind of said sunken colony with a spine crawler mixed together. And with that, I think that this push will be deterred. He is pulling a lot of drones, though. He really does not want to have to cancel this spine crawler. As soon as these Zerglings do get out, though, I do not think that there is much that the Terran player can do with this play, because it was unfortunately scouted, so he did opt for a very fast spawning pool. You can see that he's really going to hold this off with no problem, but with a little bit of Marine Micro, he will be able to pick off a lot of these before he does lose them. I think that the Zerg player RGI Matiz should have just kept pushing in there with those Zerglings and killed a couple more Marines, and as you can see, he's just really massing up Marines at the front of Matiz's base, and that is mostly just to ensure that Matiz doesn't try to go for some sort of crazy third expansion fast or anything of the sort. But there are a few drones, because he did have to get those early Zerglings to hold off this attack. This attack does cut off a lot of early game economy, but it does hinder the Zerg's economy more by forcing him to build a massive amount of Zerglings. And you can see that with these Zerglings, he's going to try to put pressure back on his opponent, but as a Zerg player, it is so hard to put pressure back onto a Terran player or a Protoss player, because all they really have to do is wall off. But he might not actually get this wall off. If the Zerglings can get through here, it'll take a lot of micro, but I think that these Zerglings will be able to do a lot of damage. You can see he's actually going to get in. Oh, no, he's going to actually be deterred by these Marines. An even number of Marines to an even number of Zerglings, that is not an engagement you actually want to have at higher numbers, because the Marines are in fact ranged units, and they will melt away your Zerglings. Now finishing the wall off with three barracks. This is actually a really nice opening if you're a Terran player on Shakur's Plateau. This is probably the opening you want to go. I've actually seen Select at MLG build 3 bunkers at this ramp here and completely wall off the ramp. And the Zerg player, I believe he was playing against, I do not remember who he was playing against, but he did have a little bit of rage, and rightfully so. The build that Select did was amazingly strong, it was amazingly powerful, and I don't really know what a Zerg player can do against it if he is not lucky enough to scout the 3 early bunkers. Anyhow, we are kind of descending into a macro game, and this is what I was talking about. You see the really fast third hatchery by RGI Matiz, and that's kind of what the Terran player wanted to stop, because you do not want the Zerg to get early game macro, because a Zerg player who's pumping just drones will always build more drones than you can build SCVs. It is kind of an insane concept to think about, but there is more larva for drones than there is SCV production queues, even with the mules that a Terran player can make, which do compensate for 4 to 5 mules. But you can see this expansion here isn't very saturated, where the Zerg player almost has a full saturation here and a pretty good saturation here. If we go to the unit counting station, you can actually see 33 drones to 26 SCVs. So the Terran player is going to be a little bit behind, but I think in the income tab we will be seeing relatively even. Actually, no, the Zerg is a little bit ahead. These mules should compensate for about 4 to 5 drones, but the fact is that the Zerg player has a huge lead, and he will just continue droning up, especially because he has no scout of any kind into the base. This Overlord here is actually an amazing way to scout, and if he can scout these four barracks, we should see an appropriate response with some sort of roach warren or a fast infestation pit or more spine crawlers at the front of his base to protect it, because speedlings do melt away at Hellions. Excuse me for sniffling. I do unfortunately have another cold. It seems like cold is all the rage here in Oregon. All the cold viruses are saying, hey man, kick it here. It's kind of like that commercial that you guys have actually seen. What's it called? The one for Delsum or whatever, with the germ who's just kicking it inside the person's body, and he's saying to like all of his family, hey guys, come on over, this is fine. And as you can actually see, Matiz is going for the roaches that I was talking about. But anyways, you know, so he says kick it, and I think that that is kind of Oregon. It's not actually a person, it is the entire state, because everyone I seem to know does in fact have the cold of some kind, and also extremely bad allergies. So if you do hear my sniffling, please do not be a little bit disturbed. But you can see that actually pushing out with a lot of Hellions. These Hellions will be a big deal, but Hellions do like 0 damage against a roach, and we can see here just only 8 damage to a roach who has 145 HP. Takes an extremely long time, so this push will be stopped because speedlings are faster than Hellions. But Blue Flame is up, and see, this is what I'm talking about. You can see 4 Zerglings melted here, 4 more melted here, 2 more melted here, but the roaches will actually hold them off. If I was Matiz, I would not be engaging with my Zerglings. I'd more be favoring a roach kind of engagement. You can see actually trying to swing up into this third base, and he will get into this third base. Most likely all 4 of these drones will die, and if the Zerg player does not react fast enough, he will lose also this queen, but it looks like he will engage at the right time. And I think these Hellions just screwed themselves. If he keeps his roaches here at the ramp, he will simply be able to kill it, and he's actually opting to lose a queen. I don't know if that was the right play choice by Matiz. I think that may have been just a slight misclick, but that slight misclick does cost him a queen, which in the grand scheme of things is a huge element of macro. Actually getting looks like pneumatized, I don't even know how the hell to say that, but he's getting the Overlord speed, which is an extremely good upgrade to have, and upgrading an Overseer, and it looks like these will be done at the exact same time, so he's definitely going to be using this Overseer here to scout into the Terran player's base, because he unfortunately does not have everyone's cam like we do. Terran player getting a little bit supply blocked, building a lot of supply depots, but that is the wonder of being supply blocked, is if there's no sort of pressure, it does not really hinder you that much, except for you do not get your SCVs out or drones out in the right time. I will not be in fact biased, and you can really see that this is just going to be a macro game where the Zerg player is content to really macro hard, and that's where he's going to start taking a lead on a 2-basing Terran player. The Terran player really needs to do some sort of really hard pressure right now. 13-minute point is really where the Zerg is going to start taking a decisive lead if your pressure doesn't really do any sort of damage. Sorry for that sniffle again. Like I said, the cold is a terrible thing. Actually choosing to scout out with the barracks, I really like this playstyle. He really wants to see what kind of unit composition he is going to, because Zerg is not the only reactionary race that there is. Terran, in fact, can easily react, for example, if he does see infestors, which the Zerg player was trying to hide the infestors, I think, with the Overlords, but now that there are 2 infestors out, he will probably not try to hide them. And here comes a big push. This is a really scary push, actually. At 13 minutes of the game, you see 4 siege tanks with siege tech, a lot of Hellions that he did keep alive from earlier engagements, and an SCV probably just to build bunkers and repair the siege tanks, along with a good number of Marines. This is an extremely dangerous push, but I think for it to be most effective, he really should push out right about now. If we go to the production tab, we can see 7 roaches and infestor. Neural Parasite almost complete. If Neural Parasite can be finished, he can Neural Parasite the tanks, and that really will shift the tide into the Zerg player's favor, and that's what I'm talking about. You can see All of those Hellion shots actually did hit those roaches, but really no damage. He should really push in now before the siege tanks all siege up, and it is too late. This is kind of that late game Terran siege tank push that is so scary. But he actually will look like he has enough roaches to really hold this off. Actually fungal growthing the tanks, probably just to make sure that they don't run off. Another tank coming in, but this tank will meet its doom. There's actually going to be a very close push. He really needs to unsiege this tank. This tank is just going to do area of effect damage onto itself. It's really not doing anything. It's going to lose the tank. That is a bigger deal than it seems, because that tank really is going to be the help, all the help he needs. Little known fact that infestors are, oh, they did actually get upgraded to armored units. So, or actually this is pre 1.3.3.3 patch, so they still are considered armored units, so they do not take that much damage from the Hellions. They do in fact still take a lot of damage from the tanks, who have the Crucio shock cannon. I actually think that that the StarCraft 2 player, or the StarCraft 2 creators, in fact, put a lot of effort and a lot of time into actually making the names for these. Like, for example, look at the Thor. The Thor